Hello there, people of the internet. This video I know for a fact is going to get me a tremendous amount of flack. I'm telling you right now, if you leave me a comment that goes over something that I cover in the video, I'm going to ignore it completely. Or if you tell me I'm wrong because this, that, and the other thing, and I bring it up somewhere in the video, I'll know that you didn't actually watch the video and you just kind of saw the title and decided to go ahead and leave a comment down below. And a tremendous number of people do that. So, during my time of making these YouTube videos, especially recently, I talk about 223 and 556, and I've been doing it kind of a lot, and I've had a lot of people go into my comments down below and tell me that I'm wrong about the 223 556 cartridge with some of the different claims that I'm making. So, I want to go ahead and cover the information on the 223 556 cartridge as to why I'm making these claims and why you guys think that I'm wrong. First things first, people have been calling me a shill for the 223 556. I actually don't like the cartridge. I like the 762 by 39 cartridge, but not cheap steel case 762 by 39. Use proper brass case, though I get it. AK-47s and whatnot were designed around steel case. I understand that, but steel case uses bimetal jackets, and that's a steel, like a really soft steel jacket that has like a copper washing on it, and it's really inaccurate. It's really bad for your gun. It's just not a good setup. However, you get some proper brass case ammunition and throw like, I don't know, Hornady VMAX 762 by 39 inside those bad boys, and boy, that's a heck of a cartridge. I'm not a real big fan of the 556, but I understand it, and a lot of my understanding behind it comes from just years of studying it because I find it interesting, because I find military history interesting. That's why I do the things that I do. And we live in a time where a lot of people have a lot of experience with 556 from a variety of different platforms all over the world. And whenever I talk about something, I get a bunch of people that say, hey, you're wrong because I have this experience with that, and because of my experience with that, you're completely wrong because what you said is not true. And I understand that to a point, but 556, I'm just going to say 556, but 556 and 223 for the most part can be used interchangeably. I get it, they're not the exact same cartridge. There's some stuff that goes into that, but for the sake of the argument that we're having here inside of this video, I'm just going to say 556. 556 from one platform using a particular kind of bullet can be completely different in performance than that same exact bullet being used in another platform, or that platform using, like that same platform using a different bullet, or something along those lines. There's so many variables that go into the 556 cartridge to the point to where you can't make just one blanket statement and say it's fantastic across the board or it's not great across the board. There's so many things that go into it. So whenever I bring up the 556, and I get a bunch of people that tell me, hey, the 556 is trash, I've seen it, I've used it, I've been there, done that, here's my experience, etc., etc., I will ask them, what barrel length did you use and what ammo did you use? Way more often than not, they will tell me they're using M4, which is a 14.5 inch barrel. That's a really short barrel, and they used green tip. Green tip was adopted by the U.S. military in 1982 or 83, one of those two. They adopted green tip, and then they adopted the M16A2 rifle. It was designed to be used in a 20-inch barrel, which is phenomenal, fantastic. 20-inch barrels for the AR are just fantastic for the 223 cartridge. But unfortunately, the United States military decided to themselves to cut the barrel down to a 14.5-inch barrel. Combine that with a cartridge designed for a 20-inch, and you get not great performance. Now, on top of all of that, they also went to a 1-in-7 twist barrel. They went to the 1-in-7 twist barrel because they needed to be able to stabilize a plethora of projectiles. However, that 1-in-7 twist barrel really stabilizes both 55 and 62 grain bullets, which sounds fantastic on paper, but it's not fantastic in practice. One of the things that made 556 so effective was way back in the day, whenever they adopted the M16 rifle. This right here is not a clone, it's just a retro-inspired build. I'm sure somebody's going to complain about it in the comments below. They used a full 20-inch barrel to get the bullet up to that 3,200 feet per second velocity, but they also used a 1 in 12 twist, and that 1 in 12 twist was there, so basically whenever that bullet hit whatever target it was trying to hit, it would immediately start tumbling, versus nowadays where you see tests and whatnot done on, say, gelatin, which I get is not a complete one-to-one representation of actual human tissue, I understand that, but it's the closest that we have for YouTube safe testing. Once that bullet from that 55 grain from a 1 in 12 twist barrel smacks onto that target, it's going to immediately start to tumble on that target, versus something like a 1 in 7 twist, which is really, really stabilized and it's still spinning and drilling through once it smacks onto that target. And we don't see destabilization until 5, 6, 7 plus inches into that target, which is well beyond the distance of your normal human torso. So most of the tumbling and fragmentation that you're going to get from that bullet occurs on the outside of that body. And that is why 5.56 has such a bad reputation, because we went to that 1 in 7 twist barrel, which is great for stabilizing a plethora of different rounds, but not good at utilizing like the full benefits of one particular cartridge. Green tip rounds, whenever they went to that 1 in 7 twist, they were actually exploring with a 1 in 10 twist, and a 1 in 10 twist will in fact stabilize those green tip rounds. And with that 1 in 10 twist, you get the same effect as the 55 grain from the 1 in 12 twist barrel, where that green tip round from a 1 in 10 twist is barely stabilized, and so as it's going down range, once it smacks into its target, it's going to immediately tumble, and you get that same sort of tumbling effect that just dumps all the 5.56 energy onto that gelatinous target immediately as soon as that round hits that target. However, with that 1 in 7 twist, again, that bullet is way too stabilized, and so as a result, that bullet just kind of pokes right through the enemy, because in the distance that a normal human torso, you know, the distance the bullet travels through that normal human torso, it doesn't start to tumble until it's on the outside of that torso. You combine that with the fact that we have much shorter barrels versus the original 20-inch that the original M16 rifle and original green tip were designed around, and you run into a significant problem, because 5.56 is extraordinarily dependent on velocity in order to get its capabilities. Have you guys seen Ian McCollum? And he does his, I think it's Elbonia thing, where he sabotages the military in an effort to try and make it look like he's trying to help. I feel like that's exactly what happened with the M855 round out of these guns. Somebody in the US military bureaucracy decided to themselves, hey, let's adopt this green tip round because punching through steel helmets at 500 yards for some reason is what is very important right now. And everyone was like, okay, that sounds great. And then they were like, okay, let's do the 1 in 7 twist barrel because we might want to stabilize some heavier bullets later on. And everyone was like, okay, that sounds great. So they went from the 1 in 10 twist to the 1 in 7 twist with the M16A2. And that overstabilized the bullet. Even from a 20-inch barrel, that bullet was overstabilized. So although you have the velocity, it still takes essentially too much time for it to destabilize and start to tumble, and it passes through the opponent. However, that issue is significantly amplified whenever they cut that barrel down to 14.5 inches, because they were like, hey, let's go ahead and cut that barrel down because having a shorter, handier gun is a way better option. And it just compiled into a horrible, horrible situation. Nowadays, the civilian market, basically all of your ARs, with some very rare exceptions, are going to be a 1 in 7 twist. This way is a radical AR. I know, like, your PSA ARs, which are probably your more popular budget tier AR, along with various other ARs out there, they're all going to be your 1 in 7 twist, just because that's what the military uses. That is what is the most predominant, like, just, there's a ton of these rifles out there on the market, and don't get me wrong, they work. I don't want to get hit by it. I'm not saying that, but a huge amount of them are 16-inch barrels. And a huge amount of those, like I said, are 1 in 7 twist. And that combination is just not a very good combination with 55 and 62 grain bullets. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of people say that they don't see the results that I'm making claims of whenever it comes to the 5.56. because they're running it through a short barrel with an improper twist rate that was designed around being able to stabilize a lot of different bullet weights. However, you start looking into other companies. I know some companies are making like a 1 in 8 twist, which the claim is you can stabilize a lot of different bullet weights that you'll find commonly on the market, and it'll stabilize basically all of the things that you'll come across, but it doesn't stabilize the main stuff very well, the 55 and the 62 grain bullets, or it doesn't stabilize it to the point to where tumbling effect occurs all that effectively. Now, one of the things that you will find commonly on the market, like my Delton DTI right here, if I can manage to get it out of here, this has a 1 in 9 twist. The 1 in 9 twist, just because of the availability of 1 in 9 twist ARs, I would say that this is the best option of a bad situation, because that 1 in 9 twist, it gives you a fair amount of stabilization on those 55 and 62 grain bullets, which are by far the most common bullet that you're going to find in the 5.56 platform. It gives you a fair amount of stabilization, while at the same time you don't have that over stabilization issue like you would get with the 1 in 7. So you should get some tumbling effect, but it's not going to be nearly as effective as, say, a 1 in 12 twist or even a 1 in 10 twist. I know that a lot of people, I got my Ruger Mini 14 right here, a lot of people have told me over the years that a 1 in 10 twist, which is what this Ruger Mini 14 is chambered in, a 1 in 10 twist will not stabilize 62 grain bullets, and that's wrong. I've made videos on that being wrong. You can see me shoot green tip from this 1 in 10 twist Ruger Mini 14. This is a 183 serial number, or 183 production serial number, which plants it right at 1982, I think, maybe 1983, somewhere around that time point. And with that time point being a thing, that was whenever Ruger was making these rifles with the 1 in 10 twist barrel. So this has a 1 in 10 twist barrel. I've measured it myself. I'm positive about it, and it does stabilize those 62 grain bullets. You can go watch videos on my YouTube channel about it. The thing is, it barely stabilizes them. So that 1 in 10 twist with those 62 grain bullets, like I said earlier, you get that same effect where as soon as that smacks onto a soft target, it tumbles and fragments and breaks apart and just does a tremendous amount of damage onto that target. And that's one of the reasons why I use this for hog hunting, because it's so good at what it does with that 1 in 10 twist with those 62 grain bullets. So just the misconceptions of barrel lengths and twist rates and people not really understanding what they're doing with these rifles and what was originally designed around the 5.56 platform. They're just under the impression that the cartridge sucks because they were given a really sucky setup with the cartridge. Although from a proper setup, like a full 20-inch barrel with a 1 in 12 twist, something like 55 grain bullets are phenomenally good. They are terrifyingly good because they tumble as soon as they smack their target versus just poking a hole right through like you would normally see with, say, a 1 in 7 twist with a short barrel. This is a 16-inch barrel, but most people who are, you know, experiencing things like that with the green tip from a short barrel, it's a 14 5-inch barrel like EM4 barrel. So hopefully this cleared some things up. If you want more effectiveness from your rifle and you're not using specialty ammunition or something like that, then by all means pay attention to your twist rate. I think that I can speak for all of us where I can say me and you are most likely using 55 grain lead core like M193 or green tips as our go-to ammo, simply because everything else is ridiculously expensive. And with those two platforms, if you have any experience with them and you think that the 5.56 is trash because of that experience, pay attention to the twist rate of your rifle and the barrel length that you're using. Because if you're rocking a 1 in 7 twist and you're using something like a 55 or 62 grain bullet, you're gonna have a bad time. But you bump that up to, say, a 77 grain bullet, to where that bullet is significantly less overstabilized than those lighter weight bullets, and you're gonna see way better results. Now, all of that being said, you can't exactly run those heavier bullets in a 1 in 10 twist. So if you are rocking specialty ammo, of course, pay attention to your twist rate. That's an age-old argument right there. But I hope this cleared some stuff up. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.